an interview with the New York Times, Steve Jobs confided that he never allowed his kids to use the iPad. Surprisingly, the world's biggest technocrats are also the biggest technophobes in private, following the cardinal rule of drug dealing: never get high on your own supply. In an economy which runs on attention, where images are converted into endless commodities, the eye's dominance and the suppression of other senses tends to push us into detachment and isolation. In the current era, people spend more time indoors, disconnected from nature, making them more anxious and depressed than 30 years ago, because of this relentless pursuit of pleasure in this saturated world of dopamine. So, in our thesis, instead of focusing on the figure, we are focusing on the ground. The spirit of the place makes an individual recognize the concrete reality of daily life, and in this culture of reward, it helps to embrace this reality in urban space. Our research focus would be based in London, and the data we are dealing with are physiological, psychological, and social. In physiological data, the space syntax method assisted us in examining the angular relationship between different sightlines to understand the impact of spatial configuration on human movement and interaction. To identify the deprived areas of the city, intangible and tangible datasets were obtained from government records of London. So the question we are trying to ask here is, can we change the perception of space and contribute to the mental well-being of the socially isolated and virtually dependent world? The collected data was divided into two groups, and then they were compared, differentiated, and finally clustered using the machine learning technique. An unsupervised machine learning technique identified the deviated data for the filtering process. Then, the deviated data was divided into clusters to its nearest mean, resulting into two areas of focus. Finally, we narrowed it down to a site in Vauxhall. The online data from OpenStreetMaps were used to analyze pedestrian behavior. Flickr data helped us perform sentimental analysis to identify areas of concern and area perception analysis to identify the popular spots. Additionally, in visibility graph analysis, we analyzed the intervisibility connection within buildings and urban networks from a given vantage point. In sunlight analysis, we looked at the sun exposure percentage of the area throughout the year. This data, concluded from the cognitive and environmental reading of city, was grouped into three generative data stacks, which were converted into desired output representation using generative adversarial networks, eventually resulting in visual maps to identify suitable site locations. After cleaning up the points and removing the undesirable chunks of null or obscure value, we were left with this: points extracted from pix-to-pix. Connecting pix-to-pix points helped us identify high-density and data-driven areas. In the third place concept, the most overwhelming space in the city is the interim period from one point to another, also known as liminal space. Hence, our site was a path between residential and commercial area where we identified 4 routes along the cluster which were densely populated, and ran an isovist along these 4 routes. We selected the one which was the most heavily data-driven and visually dense. We conducted a color analysis on Google Street Images to assess the visual quality of the spaces. Additionally, the urban green analysis identified nature-deprived locations. Exploring space perception from inside and out, considering environmental, material, and color factors that affect sensory experiences, the city within a city concept counters detachment caused by visual dominance, promoting grounded human experience. We initially selected a micro area for intervention and trained the entire Vauxhall data on this site, resulting in a retrained data image. Then we ran k-means clustering on the points we cleaned from the resultant data to get more targeted locations. As part of the city within a city concept, we developed design forms inspired by English landscapes to enhance the spirit of place. We iterated these forms on the resulting data points using computational techniques to aggregate complex conditions. This process resulted in the creation of habitable structures. Given London's extreme weather conditions affecting people's haptic sense, we iterated the blocks under various climatic conditions to achieve optimization. Consequently, we chose 3 key areas for our site intervention: a path to cultivate presence and amplify awareness of disruptive noises, and designed blocks as rooms for self-actualization. To enhance perceptual quality, we conducted the isovist experiment by adding windows to the block's surface, considering various interior points, ultimately creating an enhanced experience at the micro level. We scraped 5,000 colors from our analysis of social media data. These colors and compositions, which trigger dopamine release while using social media, were utilized to create desirable and pleasurable spaces. Then extracting textures based on the colors, emotion and activities using Midjourney and considering a central vantage point in space, texture application using computational techniques enhance the user's perceptual quality.